Me Triboro, coming to you live from Sausage Hut Studios here in Kinnelon, New Jersey. And we have Rich Moschella here and Marci Keck. Rich is an author of the book
My New Jersey
Paranormal Project.
Yes.
And Marci's from the New Jersey Paranormal Project as well. So welcome, guys. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. Well, we're going to get to talk about your book. And
Okay.
Here it is, by the way. Let's just give a shot to everybody. That's
There it
what it
is.
is right there. I've read it. It's an awesome book.
Thank you.
But before we get into the book, I want you to tell us where you got interested in the paranormal. I mean, I know there's a story from reading the book, chapter
Right.
1, right in the beginning you describe, but just give us the 30,000 foot level of how you came to be interested in the paranormal.
Well, my family would have parties and stuff, and I started to hear a story that was told by my father and my grandmother about the death of my grandfather and how that occurred, the events that led up to it. Pretty much, her mother came to her in spirit, who's been dead for 30 years, and actually tried to let her know that he was going to pass away by scaring her at two different points. And these two different points that she came through, she would grab her arm. And everybody else in the house heard her scream except my grandfather. So this happened twice, and then he went to work one day, and she's in the house, and the dishes are rattling, the lights are flickering, and she knew something had to happen. And that's when she got the call that there was an accident and he won't be coming home from work because he was killed.
Wow.
So those events leading up to it, I write about in the book. And then I also found out she comes from a very sensitive family, very clairvoyant. They would practice in seances and all like that kind of stuff. So I kind of found out that my family has ties into the paranormal. And that could maybe explain the events leading up to, what I started to experience.
And so
and piqued my interest.
And how did it progress from there? I mean, give me the basic journey and the iterations that it took in your life from there to here.
Well, ghost sightings. I remember different apartments that I would rent. I would be in bed at night and there was a closet. And from that closet, I would hear talking. And I'm talking about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, everybody downstairs was fast asleep, and I would hear voices coming out of the closet. And at the time, my wife even was like, "What's these voices?" And I remember running downstairs and looking around, like the street, like is there anybody walking by the house? And nobody was walking by the house. And then we would move somewhere else, and the same stuff would kind of follow and happen. Footsteps, doors opening, like really creepy stuff. And at first I was very afraid of it, and kind of blocking it out. Until I probably, about 2002, I moved into an apartment in Lodi. And I started the same thing again, seeing things, and I started reading books about mediumship and talking to my father about my grandmother and what she was picking up on and how sensitive she was. And I started thinking, maybe I have a little bit of this, So I started doing like meditations and stuff that you can do online if you want to develop your sensitive abilities. And my landlord called me downstairs one time because he knew that I started getting into this. And he goes, "I want to see how good you are. Walk through my house. I'm going to give you a test." So I'm like, okay, I'm kind of up for this. Did not know the history, but as I was walking through the house, in my mind's eye, I saw a woman staring out the window. Old lady with like the little nightgown on. And I saw her staring out the window. So I mentioned that to him. He goes, "My grandmother would stand at that window and wait for me to come home from school." So that meant something to him. We walked past the bathroom, and I remember looking in, and I almost saw a flashbulb go off in my mind's eye. And I saw an old lady on the floor in the bathroom. So I mentioned that to him. And as soon as I mentioned that to him, he goes, "Get out of the house." He goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "My grandmother fell in that bathroom, and a week later she died at Hackensack Hospital." So that was like validation where I'm doing something here. You know, there is something that
Yeah.
is happening. So
How about you, Marci? Like, how did and tell me what I'd like to know though. Mostly is how you came to from your first finding out you're interested to all the way to this point. Where you're doing investigations. You have an organization that is, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. But shed some light on your journey there.
So basically, like Rich, it kind of runs in my family. My father has always had experiences. We had an old woman who lived in our house. She was very gentle. She used to come tuck us in at night. I never saw her, but I could feel her pacing my room, protecting me. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, also had experiences where she saw things. So it was always there. But how I got it was part of jealousy. The men in my family always had their toes pulled at night. And I was always like, why are their toes pulled at night? So the night before my brother's funeral, my toe got pulled. And I was like, no, I was like, that didn't happen. I was just dreaming. And then about 3 minutes later, I got a tickle on my foot, and it was my brother's voice saying, tickle, tickle, tickle. And that was just justification that this is real. And, I have something. So that led into, we were a military family. We ended up on Picatinny Arsenal, which is a really old military installation, and we had experiences there. I had a friend who passed away. He came to visit me, and he said, please tell my wife I'll be okay, to move on. They were very young, and just different things like that. People found out I was interested, so the Historical Society at Picatinny invited me to form a chapter called the Picatinny Paranormal Research Society. I did a presentation last February, which Rich found out about, and Rich contacted me and said, hey, do you want to come investigate with me? And that's the story.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
It's a total led me to Rich.
So
Jockey Hollow, the rest is history.
It's good that you mentioned Jockey Hollow. One of the things that I enjoy about you guys is your niche. You have a niche in the market, really, and that niche is that you incorporate places that have a rich history whenever you can. Tell us about that niche, but tell us, is that just something where you're a historian at nature, and this is just maybe combining two great tastes that taste great together, not to be too cheesy, but
I feel that the paranormal and history, they go hand in hand. I mean, for events that have taken place at these locations, that's your history. And when you could bring in a paranormal team and bring those two aspects together and see if everything kind of lines up, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we tell the stories that still need to be told that they're not able to tell. So.
Because there's, the events that are told are only maybe the big events that happened at these places. But there's so many other smaller stories that are still interesting, that are still relevant, and names that could come up that maybe could fill some of those gray areas between the black and white.
Sure, fill in the spaces as you go along.
And I love history, so that's something I wanted to combine the two.
So another thing I noticed about you guys, so you guys basically, investigated the Butler Museum. We're going to get into that in a minute. And what I noticed is that there's a certain amount of planning that goes into some of these, and explain what that is about and what kind of planning goes into, picking a place and doing an investigation.
Well, I think first the location would have to be open to a paranormal team coming in. We find it sometimes very hard for a historical society to accept the paranormal. I mean, there's a lot of things that groups can do. I mean, you could tarnish a place if you report the wrong things. What we do is we combine a lot of research, countless hours of research, digging up the history, looking at Find a Grave, and really making sure if anything comes through that it's coinciding with this list that we have of names that were associated, people that were associated, And if something doesn't sound right, I'll talk to you if you're the historian and say, we're getting this name. Does this make sense to you? We just don't go out and start broadcasting,
Sure.
Elvis Presley was here,
Yeah. Well, and it's actually funny you mentioned that, because we just did that, and we're going to get more into that as we get a little further along here. I want to turn to Marci here on this, though, because you were the one that sent the email out that I got. And I'm, as everybody, maybe you know, maybe you don't, I'm the director of the Butler Museum here in Butler, New Jersey. It's a great little museum.
Yes, it is.
It services a population in Butler of about 7,500 residents. And, pound for pound, I feel like it's the best museum around. That being said, why did you feel like the Butler Museum was an ideal place to have an investigation?
I call it intuition. It's kind of like writing Rich's, forward there. It was just a gut feeling that Butler was a place that would be welcoming to what we had to bring. And, I send out countless emails, but every once in a while there's one that says, this is the place that I really need to focus on
feel that pull.
And do a follow-up. And, when you wrote back almost immediately and said, well, I think this might be a good fit for us. It was just a pull.
Yeah. And I have my reasons because, I have my own crazy theories about what's going on, like at the museum.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I open the door, I say hi to everybody, nobody in particular, but hey, everybody, I want to be friendly there. I feel certain kinds of ways. I think everybody's really had that feeling, that deja vu, that feeling, or that feeling that, the hairs on the back of your neck stand up because something happened. I think maybe I am a little bit, but when you reached out, it was actually a no-brainer. And you guys did a pre-visit, so I'm really interested. I know it's all about Rich because the book, blah, blah, blah. But Marci, I want to know from you,
what I hear from
when
her.
you came away after our pre-visit, what was your feeling about the Butler Museum?
So I have to be very honest with you. The Butler Museum, the most appealing thing to that is your military room, because my husband was in the military for 24 years. He's a retiree. And for some reason, I am drawn to the military, obviously. But when I was in Gettysburg, I was drawn to a 17-year-old Civil War, soldier, and I was drawn back to that room. Ogden and Dean were calling me. So immediately, and I've heard their voices, they've touched me, I've had an orb go up my leg like they were touching my leg, so it's
Freaking
just phenomenal.
Awesome.
And that first, pre,
how about you?
That first pre-visit
Yes.
that we're there, and I'm just taking pictures just to gauge the rooms and how we maybe can tackle this place. That huge white orb was up by the marching band.
And if anybody at home wants to see that, you can go to the Facebook page. Give the Facebook page.
You could log on to the New Jersey Paranormal Project.
And go look at their pictures and go look at the orb. It's perfect.
Yep. And you could go online.
Yeah.
We also have the website, NewJerseyParanormalProject.com.
Right.
But that white orb was just, that was just pre-visit. And I remember I turned to you and I go, if this is the pre-visit, this is only going to get better from here.
Yeah. So, all right, time to take a short break.
Okay.
But when we get back, we're going to actually talk about what actually happened in the investigation at the Butler Museum. Don't go away. The people of Butler, New Jersey are fiercely loyal and reflective of their long and storied history. Like Lady Liberty, who found her footing here, its residents stand proud of the borough's roots as the last dusty stop on the Susquehanna Railroad. Following the lead of the borough's most famous resident, the wooden fireman, the townspeople have stood sentry to generations of innovation and pride in American industrial workmanship. Butler's blue-collar history is one that many take pride in. but large parts of its historical figures and places are unknown to today's current residents, somehow lost in the translation between then and now. Even those most knowledgeable of Butler's deep history may not be aware that it is the birthplace of alternative medicine and the home to the earliest experiments involving the newest emerging science, cryonics. Ironically, though, frozen in time are the unforgettable images of the worst fire in the entire country when the Pequannock Soft Rubber Company went up in flames in 1957, along with Butler's entire economy. It was an event that would further shape the community. Although the saying is only a recent vintage, it still captures the essence of the entire borough. It takes more. This is Butler, New Jersey. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're still here. Talk to Me Triboro, and I have Rich Moschella and Marci Keck here. They're both from the New Jersey Paranormal Project, and Rich is an author of the book My New Jersey Paranormal Project.
Yes.
See, they got it right that time.
There you go.
I've been practicing on the break, and these guys had me go. They had me doing my work today. It's
Awesome.
a Thursday night. We're so glad to have you to talk about your book. But before we do that, we said that we would talk about the investigation at the museum.
Right.
So we did the pre-visit. You guys, what they don't know at home is that, while we were doing the pre-visit, I'll just introduce my story here because, it's like my show and everything.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just going to go that way.
Just go ahead.
Yeah.
So I'm like at the table, and Marci's to my right, and Rich is like across from me. And, I think was it just you two guys? It was just you
For the
two
pre-visit.
for the
Yeah.
pre-visit. And while we're talking, we hear people trying the door.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like they're trying the door. So we have security cameras all throughout the museum, as
Yeah.
you guys know. So never try to rob the Butler Museum.
Paul's watching.
It's like Fort Knox in that place. Plus, they say it's haunted.
Yes.
But, the thing is that, haunted by good ghosts anyway. But the thing is that, we felt it on that pre-visit. So tell us now, we get to the investigation, and we kind of all thought that we would start it at early in the morning. The logic being that, that's the busiest time for a train station, any train station.
Yeah.
Anywhere from 5:30 in the morning to like 8 in the morning. And a lot of people understand that the Butler Museum was a train station. The train used to come. It was a freight train, but it was also a passenger train all the way up until 1966. And so people would come early in the morning. They would do their shopping. They would go to work in the rubber mill. And so that's when we had our investigation. Go.
And that's a long period of time of the activity that was happening at this train station. So you would assume that if these people crossed over, they died, that if it's something that they enjoyed, if this was a routine that they enjoyed doing, if it was a place that they liked visiting, they might do this again in spirit. I don't feel that these people are stuck at the Butler
No,
Museum.
I don't either.
I feel that it's a place that in spirit form, if you want to be there, if it was a place that you liked going to.
All right. So I don't want to interrupt you.
Okay. Yeah, no,
but
no.
I got now. This comes into my head. I got to ask you this question, and I kind of feel like my job is to ask maybe the questions that they might be thinking, okay, as they watch
Right.
this interview and they watch this show. let me just use the example of aliens, okay?
Okay.
And take aliens, for example, okay? If you go back like 40, 50 years ago, when somebody said, I saw aliens or I saw a UFO or whatever, what would happen? They'd come with the crazy suit, they'd roll them away, okay?
Yes.
And, they're coming to take me away, the whole thing, straight jacket.
Totally.
Until at this point now, today, you would have to be just arrogant to believe that we're the only place in the entire universe where there can be life.
Right.
But I'm kind of taking you the long way around to this point. It's that it would blow our mind, okay, if we saw an alien, all right? First of all, everybody thinks that what? They're little green men with almond eyes that beam down from flying saucers and then do experiments on people's toes and stuff, right? But that's not, we wouldn't be able to wrap our mind around it. So I say the same thing about the paranormal. Right. Because no one's ever, gone through the others. There are people who have NDEs and they come back and they say this and that. Some of the stories are remarkably similar. Give me your opinion on that concept in the context I'm trying to bring to it.
Yeah, well, I feel that when we go into our spirit form, we shed the physical body. It's limitless then. Because if we are energy and our soul is energy, we could be anywhere at any time. We are a thought, we are a feeling, we could communicate via signs. And I feel that time doesn't exist in that next realm. So you're not limited to the physical laws. So you could be at more places than one, and that could explain why somebody, who loses a parent feels, the parent's energy around them or their spirit. And it could be all the siblings are feeling it at the same time.
But what about the smell? Okay, you hear the stories. Marci, tell me this, okay? Because I kind of felt like when you were there, you were more the most in tune to the way that people that maybe they might try to reach across. And people hear about this stuff all the time. I opened the closet and I had a cigarette smell.
Yes.
And my father was a cigarette smoker or whatnot.
So I've had experiences, with getting cigar smoke blown at me, smelling perfume, things like that. One area in your museum is where the former school teacher and her dress is. I feel like I smell just female there, and I don't know how to say it, like the soap she used or something that she used to clean her clothes.
You're talking about Martha B. Day, by the way, from Bloomingdale. The school's named after her.
Yes. And there's just a certain draw for me for that area because I'm just smelling femininity. So I was brought to her as well.
Very interesting, because again, maybe it's not something you see all the time. Maybe sometimes it's something you might sense, or sometimes it's something you might smell or sense in one way or another.
And they could use those ways to communicate a message to you. I know when I went to the Twain house, the top where he would write in the top loft smells like a cigar. And nobody smoked a stogie there since Sam died.
So okay, let's get away from the museum for a minute. And just before we do that, I want to let everybody know the museum's open the first and third Saturday of every month from 10 to 2. Come down if you even want to do research, you want to walk around. And if you do come down, ask me to show you my identical pictures of Richard Butler. You're going to want to see that.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about the book. Here's the book right now. It's called
My New
Jersey Paranormal Project by Richard Moschella. And first of all, I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
I read it. It's an easy read, and I'm
also to make it that way.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm 51 years old, and once you hit 45, it becomes an issue to be able to read without prosthetic eyes, like my reading glass that I have in every room of the house. But this book I can actually read without my glasses, so that's the first thing that's great. Also, you have a really nice way of telling the story. It's very personal.
I wanted it to be a conversational.
So, what made you want to write a book in the first place? This is your first book, by the way, right?
First book. I wanted to tell the story of what led me to doing what I do, and the paranormal experiences that kind of pushed me towards where I'm at right now. So it starts off with my personal, things that happened, and it leads me into forming the New Jersey Paranormal Project. and also talking about our case files. And I wanted people to see that spirit isn't something to be scared about. You know, it's not that foofy kind of, you know, you're going to be possessed and you're going to, you know, have all these bad things happen. That communication with spirit could actually be a beautiful thing, especially, you know, when you're genuinely talking to somebody who's on the other side and you've seen those tools operate right in front of you.
I seen
when
some
we
of them.
were investigating there.
Yes, and was amazed.
Butler Museum.
By the way. Now, I got to ask you before. I mean, you know, look, the book is great. They have to read the book and they have to get the book. They can get it on Amazon, by the way. It's also available on Kindle.
Yep.
But the really cool thing, and I want to share this with the people at home through your enthusiasm, which is, how cool was it when you first saw your book, like in print, like held that thing in your hand? This is your first book, so tell me about that.
Wait, when you click the button to, you know, send it to Amazon, it says it could take 24 hours. I must have checked it like for 8 hours every time to see if it was up. And when it did load, it was just a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
Because I wrote for fishing magazines years ago, and I feel like that kind of helped me write this book, like kind of like understand, you know, flow and layout. So I was a published writer, and I said to my wife, I said, my next goal is I want to publish a book. So I crossed that off. And I think that's what life should be about, crossing off things that you want to do.
Accomplishment, because you know what?
You only got one shot at it, Paul.
Rich, here's how it works, okay? 80%, 20% of the people do 80% of the work, okay? And most people are thinkers, and very few people are doers. Yeah. And to write a book, I know, because I've actually produced a few movies in my time with Tony T, who's behind everybody. You guys know Tony T. Tony's behind the board over here doing the engineering. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
This guy, the guy, he does everything. But we put movies together, and you know what? Doing the long journey. You know, when you're not sure if someone's going to buy it or be interested in it, while you're spending all those blood, sweat, and tears hours, you have that question in the back of your mind, like, you know, is this worth it? And that's, I think, when you separate the men, the women from the boys, from the girls, because that is when you know, the people who cannot do it fade off. So what about that?
Well, I am a huge fan of the Beatles, and George, Harrison is my favorite Beatle. And I remember George, he said in an interview, I'm not recording these songs for anybody but me. And if you like them, that's great. If you don't buy the record.
Well said by the Beatles, no doubt about it. Marci, and not to cut you off, because these people don't have hours, but I got to get to Marci here on this, because in the book is a great foreword that was written by Marci.
Thank you.
So, first I want to ask you what that's like to be asked to write the foreword for a book, because not only is it an honor, but it also, down the road, people look at these things and they associate more credibility, with writers, and especially someone who did the foreword for a book or whatever. So, what kind of an honor was it to be able to write that, be asked to do it?
Like you said, it was an honor, and it was a surprise that Rich asked me, even though it wasn't a surprise. Rich and I kind of have this little kindred thing going on.
Totally.
When Rich first asked me to join him, start talking, I felt like he was my brother, and for him to ask me to write the foreword for the book, it just seemed like the right fit. We have this thing, trust your gut, follow your intuition. I felt like he asked me because he knew I was the right fit for that, and I would put the right words into it. So I just let it go from the heart, how I felt about Rich and how I felt about his accomplishment with the book.
Tremendous, and it's a really great job. You did a fantastic job, Marci.
And I couldn't have done that book without having the support of people like Marci and people in my group to kind of push me towards it, you know?
And, not on top of all of that, I'm in this book, and basically chapter 7 is the Butler Museum. Go in there and look at that chapter. It goes over, and you probably have some stuff on your screen right now about their footage inside the museum. And I want to, before we get going, I want to tell, or just at least shine the light, I think I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about it, was that when the story is that as I hear it, I want you to explain it quickly, is that when we were doing the investigation, you invited Kim. What's Kim's say her name?
She just wants to be known as the ghost history medium Kim.
Okay, the ghost history medium Kim. Almost like the artist formerly known as Prince and stuff like that. That's really cool. Cool. So I actually like her more now after you told me this. But anyway, title notwithstanding, they were all in the basement, and we have an Evil Dead door in the museum, in the kitchen. If you walk in the kitchen, it's on the floor. You pick it up like this.
And there's Henrietta down there.
And there's like, it's dark. You can't see down there, and it's like fieldstone walls and the whole nine. And you guys were all in there, and you were basically
the basements are the best part.
And you had the communication stuff out.
We had the S box.
Okay, so tell us what happened when Kim, walked down the stairs and what was said in the box.
She wasn't quite down the stairs. She was upstairs with you. Marci and I were downstairs when we were running the Spirit Box session.
Yes.
And the Spirit Box sweeps audio waves, and I was actually running it in reverse. So even if a voice was coming through and it was radio, you wouldn't be able to understand it. So I'm running it reverse in AM, and all of a sudden you're upstairs with our medium Kim, and you hear, shh, psychic. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, she's upstairs.
Wow.
I mean, and voices aren't coming across this regularly. You get one, every once in a while that really rattles you, and that was quite rattling.
That one was.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to give you a last chance, Marci.
Okay.
Give me something that happened to you in the museum that got your attention that maybe people at home would find interesting.
So for me, I use dowsing rods. They are one of my favorite tools. And when I was by Mr. Butler's bronze bust, yes, I said it properly.
It's a plaster bust.
Yeah.
The bronze bust. The bronze bust. Listen, if anybody's watching this broadcast, and you feel like you know where that bronze bust is, I guarantee you that if you bring it back to the museum, we will throw you a parade. Okay, we will carry you around on our shoulders, and we will give you infinite credit. But go ahead.
And a free copy of the book.
And a free copy of the book. Thank you, Rich. Thank you. Okay, but go ahead.
So dowsing rods basically answer yes and no and directional questions. And I asked if he knew what happened to the bronze bust, and it said no. And I said, does your wife? And it said no. And I said, does someone know? And it said absolutely yes. And I said, was it stolen? And it said yes. And I got this intuition in my head saying, it's melted. And I said, was it melted? Was it sold and melted? And it said, yes, right away, the dowsing rod. So I do believe that the original bronze bust was melted and then used for something else.
So what I want to do is I want to tell people right now, again, how they can get the book. Okay, and go ahead and give them the plug on it.
You can find it at Amazon. We have it available on Amazon Kindle. And again, you could message me on Facebook, and if you want a signed copy, we could work something out.
And the reason that we're here today doing this show is to promote the book signing.
Yes.
Okay, so on Sunday, this coming Sunday, from what did we say? Is it 2 to 4?
2 to 4
o'clock to 4 o'clock
Museum.
At the Butler Museum. We're going to be observing all social distancing guidelines. We don't want anybody to be sick or get sick at the museum, so we're going to let very few people in at a time. The weather's supposed to be beautiful.
Yes.
We're going to temp check everybody, and then when you come in, there'll be some books available for you to purchase that you can then have signed by Rich. And you guys can tell from this webcast that this guy, he's a good dude. This guy is a good dude.
Well, thank you,
Marci, am I wrong? I mean,
Oh yeah,
he's got a good heart.
Yeah, he does.
And he's a small guy like the rest of us trying to make a living. This book is a good book. Buy it. Okay, but more importantly, come to the museum on Sunday. Rich is going to be there. I'm going to be there.
And check it out.
Yeah,
you have
exactly.
some beautiful stuff there, and the artifacts, and it's a great place to check out.
Yeah, I thank you guys for being there. I appreciate you so much for being on
My
the very
pleasure.
first
Thank you
episode
for having
ever
us.
of Talk To Me Triboro. This show serves the Kinnelon, Butler, Bloomingdale, Riverdale, Lower West Milford area. And if you guys have any interest in the museum, reach out to us, go to us on Facebook, or you can look us up on the web at www.thebutlermuseum.org. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Buy the book.
Thank you.